Welcome to The Breakdown, brought to you by Paintball Access in association with Paintball Nation. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, GI Sports, Planet Eclipse, Die Precision, and Key Action Sports. So the 2014 season is in the books. It was an insane season, back and forth battles, so much chaos within the league. And we're here to break down the team's 10th through 6th is overall rankings at the end of the season. I'm Matty Marshall. We got Ryan Greenspan from San Diego Dynasty as well as Todd Martinez. So boys, let's start with team number 10. We have Los Angeles Infamous. What a crazy year for Los Angeles Infamous. They start out at the first event. They win the first event in the Champions Division. And then it was kind of a disaster from there until the very end of the season when they were able to take down San Diego Dynasty in the Challengers Division final matchup, which was one of the best games that we've ever seen. But Todd, you coached Infamous before. Talk to me a little bit about their season.
Well, I mean, all due respect to LA Infamous, I got to give them their props because I feel like, still from top to bottom, they got a really stellar roster. But the thing with LA Infamous is they came out, they were determined to prove to us that they were a top 5 team in this league. And, all of last year, the way that they finished, like 4, 5, 6, everybody looked at them like, these guys aren't legit, especially after the year that they had the year before that. And for them to come out, win the first event, that was them putting their stamp on the season saying, hey, we came here to play, all right? But then when they went into MAO, they lose to 187 in a really close game that ended in overtime. That sent them down to the Challengers Division, and from there on out, they had a really rough go at it from there on out. They go to Chicago. They play Art Chaos in the semifinals to go back to the Champions Division, to go to the Challengers Division finals. They lose after going up 4-0. They lose to Art Chaos. Okay, Art Chaos ended up destroying VCK in the finals. And then they go to Riverside, and they once again play against Revo. Go into the semifinals. Revo comes out, has the game of their lives.
Game of their lives.
End up knocking
Such a good
Infamous back down.
It goes down to the last second.
Last second.
Penalty in the last
Damian
couple
Ryan
seconds.
gets a major penalty in the last second. Ended up costing them the game. Huge controversy, but Revo, in the end of the day, just stepped up and played better and had a game against a highly touted, respected pro team, and ended up leaving Infamous in the Challengers Division. And that brought us to World Cup, where Infamous comes and takes on Dynasty in one of the most exciting games that anybody's ever seen, where it comes down to overtime, ends up going to one-on-ones. And if you haven't seen it, then you need to go watch it before I can even begin to explain how that game turned out.
Well, I said in a previous breakdown, but if you are ever going to show somebody one paintball game, that is the paintball game to show them. It was such a dramatic finish. You couldn't have asked for a better end to the season. It was the last game that we got to see in the 2014 season. I was on the edge of my seat pretty much the entire game because, historically, Infamous and Dynasty have played some really, really close matchups. The game that you guys played in Dallas, where Oliver, almost had that flag hang. I mean, that almost has 1 million hits on YouTube. I mean, was a ridiculous game. For some reason, every time you guys play Infamous, it's just this incredibly dramatic game. This one happened to go all the way to one-on-ones, and not just go all the way to one-on-ones. It went to 5 one-on-ones. But I got to ask you, Ryan. You were the top-ranked guy on Dynasty. You're just coming back from your knee injury at World Cup, but we didn't see you out there for the one-on-ones. Why is that? Because I was wondering. I'm like, hey, how come Ryan's not out there? I mean, not that anyone on that team, on your team, can't step up and play some one-on-ones. I mean, Tyler's a great player. You had some great guys out there in one-on-ones. But again, the story of the one-on-ones in and of itself was an amazing paintball story. Just that one little microcosm of the moment. But the whole time I was like, where's Ryan Greenspan?
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's a good question. What if you go back and watch the final overtime point? Okay, there was that huge argument in the middle of the field.
And you were out there the whole time.
I was out there the whole time.
True.
I had also had a bit of a gun issue in the final point, and so my gun was just completely mangled, like they had broken paint in the inside of my gun. Not to say that I couldn't have borrowed someone else's, but what had happened earlier in the season, if you rewind to the Dallas event, is we all left the field thinking that the ref's call at the end of the game was the ref's call. Meanwhile, Posey, the coaches for Infamous, had gone on the field, and we were the only ones out there arguing. And then next thing you know, we ended up with a major, and then another point, and something crazy had happened. So I wanted to make sure that in the final point of overtime, that we were actually gonna go on to one-on-ones. I wanted to make sure that whatever penalties they had thrown at the end, I wanted to make sure I had voiced my opinion, because I was one of the last guys left on the field at that point in time. In overtime. So what ended up happening was we had cleared the field, everybody but myself, Rusty, and then the Infamous coaches. So I didn't really have any time to go back and get ready for the one-on-one. By the time I had gotten back into the pit and the clock had started, the 5 guys, Oliver I think walked straight from the snake after that penalty happened. Well, I think he walked right over there and just said, "Give me some pods," and was already standing there touching up.
Well, just real quick,
he wanted to be out there.
Well, it was interesting because when I actually got to talk to both Rusty and also talk to Travis Lemansky, so the coach of Dynasty and the coach of Infamous, after that game had happened, and I asked them what was the methodology that you went by putting those guys out for those one-on-ones? And it was such an amazing story with both Travis and Rusty as far as the first guys to go out, because at the end of the overtime point, you had Oliver running down Bobby Aviles in the back corner bunker and getting a penalty. So it was Dynasty on the push, looking like they could potentially close it out and win that overtime point. You guys didn't get it. So then it came down to that moment. And then who were the first 2 bodies to come out for the one-on-ones? Oliver Lang and Bobby Aviles. And I was like, how does it work out in the fate of the paintball gods that we have Bobby Aviles and Oliver Lang with the last controversial seconds of that, not sudden death, but the overtime period, and then those are the guys that come out to play the first one-on-ones. And Travis had said that Bobby, after he felt that he got cheated, he walked in and demanded to play the one-on-one. He went in and basically was like, "I'm the one going out. I'm going to take this one. Put me out right now. I'm going out first, right, Travis?" And Travis was like, anytime as a coach, if somebody
Absolutely.
that fired up and they're like, give me the ball, you got to give him the ball, right? So Bobby, before he was like looking at his list, because in order to put the one-on-ones out, you have to decide your 5 guys and send them out right away. You don't get to send them out one at a time.
Yeah, we all have to be behind the thing.
And so that kind of goes to what you were saying is like when you go in, it's like, well, you had just been in an argument and you just were in that last end of the point.
And in hindsight, I could have baited. I could have done it.
I'm just saying, I would have put you. I think that it would have put you guys in the best position to win.
And it wasn't necessarily Rusty's call. Rusty was like, I want 5 guys to go out there. Give me 5 guys that want to win, And this is as I was walking into the pits. In hindsight, I should have spoken up a little bit more.
Because he had said that. That's what he said.
At the same time, I saw 5 of my guys that I had the utmost confidence in storm out on that field, and they're like, "I'm doing it." Yosha's like, "I'm there." Yosha was the second one out the gate. Alex was already out there, and Tyler and Brandon were like, "We want to do it." Yeah, we wanted, and I'm not going to be like, "Well, I want to do it more."
Well, because I had
hang on, let me clean this out, or give me your gun.
I had asked him. I was like, "Why didn't you demand to put Ryan out there?" And he had said, "Well, honestly, I asked the team what the deal was, and those were the 5 guys that first stepped up, And so I could see kind of with you coming in after that, why you weren't one of the guys that was like, I'm going to go out right away, because you're a calm, methodical guy.
I have the utmost confidence in my guys, dude. I would give them those 5 guys. I would let them play that again. and still not even bat an eye about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's
again, came to 1 point.
and think about the guys you put out. You know, you're talking about, Tyler, Oliver, Alex, Yosh, and Brandon.
Yeah.
I mean, those are ridiculous one-on-one players and ridiculous paintball players.
And we made a bit of a mistake in that 5th point. You know, I don't know if we were a little unclear as to how to win that, but we had that one. And for some people who don't know how the rules work, it's basically the tiebreaker on the one-on-one tiebreakers it comes down to time that you hung the flag, possession, and if you eliminated anybody. So at the end of the day, when Zach shot Brandon out, Brandon didn't even need to engage with Zach. We had already had that one because Oliver had hung the flag with more time than Bornstein did.
And Alex Frazier had a flagpole.
And Alex Frazier had a flagpole. So as long as Zach Wake did not hang that flag, we would have won.
Yeah.
So engaging with Zach was not the best strategy.
That's how close that game was.
But that's how close that game was.
That's how close that game was.
But if
you got to watch it.
If Ryan Greenspan's in that game,
I'm just saying. I
I
love all the guys that you guys put out for the one-on-ones. Those are all amazing paintball players. But you're the number 1 ranked guy on the team. Come on, dog. You know what I'm saying? You're Ryan Greenspan. I would have put you out for that one-on-one. But
well, thank you.
I'm just. I would.
Yeah. I understand.
I'm just being real.
At the same time, he had 5 guys go out there who said we want to be out. We're playing.
Yeah.
And is this the appropriate time to talk about how Infamous decided that they were going to put their guys out?
Absolutely.
This
is definitely. We're talking about Infamous, the 10th ranked team.
Tell it.
Well, essentially, what happened with Infamous was
we're sitting in the booth and we watched this happen.
Yeah. Well,
not knowing that that's how this happened.
Well, they came in and they didn't really know that they had to put all the 5 guys out at the same time. And
we knew Bobby wanted to go first.
Yeah, we knew
and
Bobby
I give
wanted
my
to go
props
first.
to Bobby because I knew Oliver was going first.
Well, you
break
it down. Break it down.
Okay, so we knew Oliver was going first.
Yeah.
We're sitting up in the booth, and I see Bobby Aviles pacing back and forth in flag station. I look at myself, I was like, hell yeah. I was like, Bobby Aviles, he wants it. Not only does he want to go first, he wants Oliver Lang.
Yeah.
He's looking down there going, I'm gonna get Oliver Lang,
Yeah.
And he didn't end up winning it, but the fact that he sat there and decided like he wants that, you got to give that to him.
Absolutely.
Right?
1,000,000%.
So was it the second one where they did it?
Yeah. Well, no. It was the third one.
Okay,
was-
so the second player out for Infamous was Drew Templeton, right? And Drew Templeton ended up stalemating with, was it Yosh?
No, Yosh lost to Bornstein.
Alex went out second.
Alex went out second.
Alex
and
is
beat
stalemated. Alex went second and stalemated.
Alex is stalemated with Drew Templeton.
Yeah.
Okay, so Oliver wins, Alex Frazier and Drew Templeton stalemate. And we're seeing like who's going to come out next. And we look, and behind the Infamous flag station is Damian Ryan and Jason Bornstein. Rock, paper, scissoring
for
who's going to go next. So I see Damian later that night. I'm like, did you guys rock, paper, scissors for who's going to go out? And he's like, yeah. I was like, what happened? He's like, I looked at Jason, and I guess before they had a bunch of practices.
Yes, I was
where
going to
they
say.
did a bunch of one-on-one tournaments.
And that's why.
And that's how they determined who their 5 was.
Well, and also, because you have to understand, so Jason Bornstein, amazing player, he doesn't get a ton of spins on Infamous. His brother Corey everyone on that team is amazing, but Jason wasn't getting a ton of spins. But when they did they do one-on-one battles, one-on-one tournaments, and they did a bunch of them. I think they did like 2 or 3 of them.
Every day, every single day.
And Jason Bornstein was the one winning those
one-on-ones,
along with Zach Wake.
Zach Wake.
And Damian was a former one-on-one champ for Infamous in these situations. So that was Travis's methodology of putting his players out.
So the third one-on-one's about to happen. And Damian and Jason Bornstein are sitting in the flag station looking at each other, rock, paper, scissoring for who goes next. And we see Jason Bornstein be like, bam, I'm in. Walks around the corner, and he goes against Yosh.
Yeah.
And ends up shooting Yosh and running and hanging a flag.
And not only just hanging the flag, diving the flag in the last second. And then not only that, so I talked to Zach Wake, who ended up being the hero and it's interesting because both of the wins that Infamous put on the board this season, Zach Wake was the hero. Zach Wake was the hero in Dallas. In the first event in Dallas. He was the MVP of the finals, and such an amazing story. I actually did a podcast with Zach Wake, so if you want to kind of get the behind the scenes of where that guy's come up through the ranks and his head in the game, and it's a longer story than we can do here in the breakdown, but it's still fascinating. So he was the last guy to go, and I talked to him, and in his interview that he did with Lauren, he was very calm, methodical, like, oh man, about as good of an interview as you could possibly do. Just, I just couldn't wait to go. About a bunch of great guys in front of me, and I was going to take it home and that sort of stuff. And when I talked to him afterwards, he was just like, man, I was sitting there like hoping to God that it wasn't going to come all the way down to me, and then it did. But he had done so well in the one-on-ones in practice, and it was him and Jason always kind of fighting for that one-on-one championship. So he was like, I was very confident that I was going to win, but at the same time, it is, you're sitting there and it's starting to whittle down, and it's going to be, it's basically first to two at best out of, with 5 guys out there. You don't think maybe it's going to get all the way to the 5th guy. That's never happened in the PSP since the one-on-one invention and the bringing that into the game. That's never gone all the way. It's never gone all the way to 5, but it went all the way to 5, and it was Zach Wake, the last guy, and he was able to get that win.
Yeah,
unbelievable. So Infamous. What a crazy season for them. They ended up getting back in the league. They beat Dynasty in one of the greatest paintball games that has ever been played, the last game of the 2014 season. Their top 5 guys this year were Kevin Cali Rudolph, 8th overall in limited spins, 54 points played for him this year. Now, also at the same time, you have to understand that Infamous didn't get to play a lot of events in the Champions Division. They did have a very abysmal center part of the year, but did redeem themselves at the end. I mean, because yeah, it's the Challengers Division. Come on, man, you beat Dynasty on a Sunday. I mean, that's an amazing win, regardless, especially with the game that good. Brad McCurley, 15th overall. Nicky Cuba, also in limited spins. He ended up blowing his knee out, so he didn't get to play. And Nicky Cuba may retire. That's another one of those bits of news that we're not really necessarily breaking that news, because Nicky's not really sure yet if he's going to be able to play on. He has ligament tears in both knees. So as Todd, you've had a lot of knee problems, and you just came from knee problems. It's definitely one of those plagues that happens for paintball players that play at this level for a long enough time. So we send our best to Nicky and his family. Hopefully he'll be able to fight through that. But we may actually see that may have been the 2014 season may be the last time we get to see Nicky Cuba play competitive paintball, which would be
very sad.
A very, very sad day. Damian Ryan, 24th overall, and then Zach Wake, 34th overall, and again, the hero of that last event. So let's move on to the 9th-ranked team, Upton 187 crew. Now, Upton, they played in 4 relegation games this year, 4. They started the year in the Challengers Division. They were able to make it back up to the Champions Division after the first event in Dallas. And then after that, they had a terrible prelims, and then they would completely redeem themselves against good teams in those relegation games until the World Cup, when they lost to Moscow Red Legion. It was a 5-4 game. It was a very close match, but they will be starting the year down in the Challengers Division. So, kind of a bad end to the season for them. But then also it's tough with them is that, is somebody going to try to cherry pick Zaleski or Trailer out of that camp? I don't know. Are they going to be able to maybe get one of these other players? Houston Heat has cut 4 players, which we'll get to in a second. They're going to get any of the vicious. Who knows? I don't know who they're going to pick up. There's always those older seasoned pros that have played up in the Northeast that I get calls from every offseason like, hey,
are they even going after anybody?
Yeah, are they even going after anybody? The cool thing is that is that talking to the leadership of that team, Mr. Painter, man, he's a great guy, and he's just really he understands the crucible that professional paintball is for a young mind, and how amazing of a life adventure that is. And so he's trying to do everything that he possibly can to make sure that these guys can play the game at this level and try to continue to learn about life, learn about themselves and the team, and try to take their adventure as long as they possibly can. But now they've been in the league for a little bit, and they were able to win 3 of 4 relegation games. I could see them being a contender one of these days. It's kind of like the Vicious story, or any of these teams, these up-and-coming stories that we hear. It's just how long can they keep it together, and how long can they just keep pushing to keep that forward momentum?
If you're not Dynasty, Damage, Impact, even look at teams like the Ironmen this year. All you really care about is that you get better. That's the goal. You get better. The Ironmen this year, they didn't go out and buy a bunch of players. They took some younger guys and tried to develop players, and throughout the year they got better. If you look at 187, last year they were in and out of the Challengers Division, constantly fighting, going up, going down, winning the Challengers Division, coming back. This year, you have to say that they at least got better every event.
I totally agree.
They were a team that just had a bunch of slow starts, inconsistency. They don't have any high-priced talent. They lost their best player who played the most points last year, Nick Laval, who went to Edmonton Impact, who got great experience, ended up winning a world title. But every single tournament, Upton 187 got better. Every event, they figured out how to stay in the Champions Division. And, except for World Cup, they ended up losing a tough game, 1-point game. But, I mean, they beat 187, or they beat Los Angeles Infamous, sent them down to the Challengers Division. Went to Chicago, sent another team down to the Challengers Division. I believe it was Chicago Aftershock, right? Sent them down. Riverside, same thing, I mean, you got to give it to the team like that who continues to fight, continues to scrap, isn't out there with a giant budget, spending tons of money. They get better and better and better. You give it to them, staying at number 9.
Well, and Todd, I just want to kind of talk to Ryan about this real quick. As a team that is, you're a legendary team, but you don't have a budget to throw at tons of guys. You don't have that ability to be like, oh, well, we need to keep you on the team. We're going to write you a big fat check. You don't have that ability. So, kind of understanding a little bit of the struggle that a team like Upton 187 crew has to deal with. Like, what's that like? What do you think is going on in that camp, and how do you see Upton 187 crew's future?
Well, it seems like their guys, like Todd said, they're getting better, and they have to notice that. Okay, so as long as they know that they're progressing and everything's going well, they don't have. There's a possibility with the way that the teams are going, they don't have the top 5 guys that everybody's gonna be trying to cherry pick because Impact's already full. You have some free guys that are going to need a home from both Vicious and Heat. All those guys need players. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be really saying, "Hey, we're going to throw some money," because at the end of the day, it's not just like some money that maybe their top guys are going to want. It also has to do with, do those guys want to leave? Is it worth it? And that also comes down to it. So someone would have to have a good amount of a budget to throw at some of these guys to make them want to leave their home. All right. So I'm nothing to take away from the 187 guys and their players because they've definitely put up some good numbers. But I don't see any of these guys being a huge budget player that some team's going to need to say, hey, how much is it? I'm going to have to pay you a lot to get you off of this team.
And Dan Zaleski and Max Trailer both got 110 kills this year.
Yeah.
They put up triple digits in kills. It's not like they don't have players.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Players. Well, not only that, but if you add in if Thomas Mantoni can just get a little bit more consistent, a little more focused, he's already good. He's a veteran. He's been out there for a long time. He's one of their main guys. If he can continue to be more consistent in 2015, they could be a force. Also added Matt Derula. Matt Derula in limited time, he played, kind of on the lower end for starters. But the thing is Matt Derula's a rookie. So for Matt Derula to get out there and get his feet underneath him, start to figure the league out, start to figure the time. As you well know that you're one of the best things that you're good at is the timing. You have amazing timing, and the timing in the Champions Division is once you see that window, if you don't take it right away, that window doesn't exist anymore. Well, Derula has started to get better at that timing, and so the spins that I've seen him get, and I've heard a lot of good things out of the guys that have seen him come up, I think he has got a great future in front of him. If they could just get maybe one more guy to add some depth, they have a couple more guys in there that also got some spins at World Cup. So I think the future is very bright for 187, and you were just saying that well maybe you don't know if with the fact that, okay, Heat just cut 4 guys. There's no more Omaha Vicious. So now you have some top-level guys, top-level tier talent that's on the market. Okay, maybe that's who Damage is going to get. Who knows? I mean, obviously, Impact's full. So there's not a lot of teams out there going to write checks. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that Upton's probably going to remain untouched in the offseason. I think they're going to come in 2015. I think they could be a potential force if they get some good practice. That's another big thing with Upton is that they have to play good teams. They have to get as much scrimmages in as they possibly can against other pro teams. To get those reps at that high level, because the only other way to get those reps is at a tournament, and the tournament's the most expensive practice that you can possibly have. So I just think that Upton's got a chance. If Zaleski and Trailer doesn't get picked off, if they stay, which I think they will, I hope they will, and Derula, if Derula gets better, if he ups his level next year, if Mantoni and Pike and these other kids up their levels, I think Upton could be a scary team in the future.
I think the biggest things for Upton 187 going into next season that they need to work on is winning as a team.
Yes.
Being able to play their stars, their role players, and everybody else around them as a unit. I think learning how to win as a team by way of what we had talked about last time is if A happens, B happens. Okay? If you see this move, this happens.
Well, it's kind of like in the
standard fundamental paintball.
In the breakdown
winning.
In the breakdown tactics edition,
Yes.
Little segment that we did with Ryan at the last breakdown that we had when we had said, because he was a little kind of, I don't know if that was the move to make at that time. And we were like, no, Ryan, that was definitely the move to make. You made that was a brilliant move, even though it didn't work out. It goes to what you're saying.
Yes. That's the
type of stuff that needs to happen.
That's the things that 187 needs to work on. And we've been watching 187 since they came into this league, since they became a pro champions team. We watched them be the all-out aggressive, just raw, hungry team that you want a team to be that comes into the pro leagues. Just go attack people, go kill people, want to bunker people, want to shoot people, want to be raw and fierce.
And that is where we got the respect from them.
And then,
that's
exactly,
where everyone started to respect.
That's how they earn their respect, right? And then they earn their stripes by continuing to fight against these high-caliber teams
in those relegation
over the years, right? And then this year, all those relegation games, winning those relegation games, I really feel like the things that this team needs to work on is learning how to win as a team, to really fall into their roles, and to really work together and just win fundamental paintball games. When we see this happen, then this is how we react. And they do that as a team. Instead of just player by player getting better in this league and being better as an individual and going and killing more people, because we got guys that are killing people, right? But it's all about these guys coming together, doing that as a unit, and winning games. That's how you win games instead of just going out and winning points.
Well, and just to top it off real quick, because we got to move on, but Upton 187, they have two guys in triple digits for kills. Max Traylor and Dan Zaleski, both at 110 kills. Eddie Painter did not really play the last event because of knee injury, so he'll be back next year full strength, hopefully, as long as everything goes well with his rehab. That's a huge addition for them. That might be one of the reasons that they didn't win their relegation game, because they didn't have Painter out there. And again, if they can get Thomas Mantoni, Matt Drula, and a couple of those other younger guys to perform at that level, they could be scary. But again, that's up to them in their preparation. And another thing is they need to get a faster start. If they could play every game like they do on Sunday morning in those relegation games, they could be a scary team in the league, because they have put some really strong teams down into the Challengers Division. So let's move on to the 8th ranked team overall, Houston Heat. So, at the beginning of the year, with the way the Houston Heat put their team together, did you think that, now, a couple weeks out of World Cup, that we would be sitting here talking about Houston Heat ranked 8th overall? I didn't think I'd be talking about this. And not only that, but also, Houston Heat, because of their, unfortunate year that they had, it wasn't a completely terrible year in the sense that if you were any other paintball team, but the way that Houston Heat, Randy Smith has gone above and beyond to put together a winning paintball team. He's one of the best owners in the league as far as really going out there and, paying guys money, making sure that they're, giving all the preparation time they possibly could get, and to finish 8th overall, which I think is why he came in with the hatchet and cut DeVitt, Woodley, Nick Sloviak, and Ronnie Dizon, even though those are rather controversial cuts, considering that Dizon, Sloviak, and Woodley have been there since the beginning, and DeVitt didn't get much of a chance. But there's got to be something waiting in the wings. There's been rumors of them picking up the Russians back, because now that Art Chaos, that's another for sure deal, is that Art Chaos is no longer going to be a team here in the PSP. They folded completely, which is pretty crazy considering that the year that they had. And we'll get to them in a second. But let's talk about Heat right now. 1, do you think they're going to pick up the Russians? 2, do you think that those cuts are legit? And 3, I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on their year. Todd, we'll start with you.
I was going to let Ryan
go. All right, Ryan, we'll start with you.
Well,
Ryan's played with Heat before.
Yeah,
Ryan played with Heat in Europe.
They have a huge budget. And he, you said he does a lot for paintball. He spends a lot of money, and he expects a lot from his guys. And you said while 9th place isn't that bad of a finish. Yeah. Well, if you look on paper,
no, I'm saying it is a bad.
It is. But you said in the grand scheme of things.
Well, no, I was saying that it was
paintball,
considering that they took a second at Chicago.
Right.
Like that was their saving grace. The fact that they took second at Chicago, and they lost to Impact. And Impact had the storybook year.
Yeah, and you look at their finishes though. They played in relegation. What is it?
World Cup.
1, 2.
They played in relegation. They lost in relegation.
Dallas,
They lost in
World
relegation
Cup,
at the first event.
and
They came back.
So they were in there. So
we'll break it down. So at the first event, they played in relegation. They lost to Damage, and they ended up losing because it was a close game. It was a 1-point game, but Jason Edwards stepped up and shot 5 guys in 1 point. to win damage to the game, sending
good.
Heat down. Yeah,
he's good.
He's good. He's pretty good. And then at MAO,
they got out.
They got out. They won the division there. And then they
started to pick up a little bit.
Yes, and that was when they reached their pinnacle. They took second at Chicago. Ryan Moorhead had a phenomenal event on the snake side, coming back from a partially torn Achilles tendon. And then it was a really tough go. They ended up winning a relegation game at the West Coast Open, and they lost a relegation game at West Coast.
You know, and
so they played
obviously,
3 relegation games.
Yeah, and they lost 2 of them. You know, so for the amount of money that Randy's spending, that's not the season that you want to have. And then to cut the guys that you're not even he didn't cut the high budget guys. He cut the guys that have been there from the beginning. They've been there through the relegation game. They've been there playing with the Russians when the Russians bailed on them for money. You know, so this team is now made up officially of mercenaries. Okay, none of these guys care to be there. They don't care about the guys playing next to them.
Yeah, but there was kind of a mercenary game. It was mercenary team to start with, man.
It was, but you know, and you look out, you trim the fat on the guys who didn't really want to be there that much because they took the better deal. You kept with the guys that were the workhorses. You know, like LJ played a lot of points, and they're getting a lot better on that side. Just like you said. You know, a couple of the guys that didn't get a whole lot of spins, but they picked him up for a reason. You know, and then Ronnie, you know, is also turning into a pretty good weapon. And I'm pretty sure those guys are going to find homes, no problem. You know, but you're now revamping your team, grabbing for the Russians to play with
Possibly.
You know, so
Is that official?
Possibly.
you know, it's not official because it hasn't
yet.
really hit the wires. You know, but I mean there's only one big reason that you make that kind of room, and then you know that there's a team. You know, those guys have been seen kind of like with each other, talking to each other, and especially with Randy and trying to help him out, getting back on his good graces and stuff.
And also, it's not like that's some craziness that has come in through the paintball ether. No, I mean, these guys, they won 4 of 10 events with those guys on Houston Heat, and the only reason that they went back to Art Chaos is because they've been playing with Art, you know, we're talking about Mishka, Konstantin Fedorov and Sergei Sonaiskov. And those guys had spent the first 2 years with Houston Heat dominating, winning 4 or 10 events. Mm-hmm. So it would not be a shocker to have them come back to the team that they won all of that, especially when they just made a ton of room. And we have not heard of any other pickups. With all these guys on the market, no one else has got picked up from Houston Heat. And though Houston Heat will not confirm or deny that they're, you know, even looking at those Russians, I mean, it does not take a rocket science to figure
and
it out.
I think that'll make the team incredibly strong. All right, is it going to be? Is the team going to have longevity? No, because none of those guys care about being there. It's not you can solve the problem by throwing money at it. Okay.
Well, they did the first 2 years.
Yeah, you can, and you created something that people bailed on anyway. Okay, and now you're cutting the last few of the guys that are there. I don't know. I just don't agree with that. Hell, if I had a lot of money to spend on Dynasty, then everybody on Dynasty would be having the time of their lives. And we'd have a bigger budget to practice with and get our players better.
But
get our players
but if you're practice more than anybody.
Yeah.
And they had the time of their lives.
Yeah.
But
think about it. But think about it. They didn't produce.
Jeez,
but think about it also.
produce.
Think if you're Randy, right? You know, if you're Randy Smith, you're the owner of the team, and you want, you know, even when he started the team, he's like, okay, I want the best paintball team on planet Earth. Who do I need to get? I need to get the best paintball players on planet Earth, and they proved that the past 2 years before this year. And then also, what happened? The last 2 events, they won. You know, those 4 guys, including, you know, Alexander Burnikov from, you know, we're talking about Art Chaos. They won the last 2 events.
But that's the thing. Right now we're talking about Art Chaos.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about number 8 Houston Heat. Okay, we're talking about how did number 8 Houston Heat do this year.
I feel you
We're
on
talking
that.
about Houston Heat.
But
the
you can't.
biggest flop of the season.
Okay, yeah.
The biggest flop of the entire season is number 8.
But you
Houston
can't
Heat.
exactly.
It's an
but you can't.
expensive flop.
Okay, but you can't talk about Houston Heat without talking about the guys that took them to the championship in the first 2 years.
Right.
The guys that were on Art Chaos that now doesn't even have a paintball team. Like
And
as it stands right now, as it stands right this second, as far as like official confirmation is concerned. Konstantin Fedorov, Sergei Sonaiskov, Alexander Burnikov, and Konstantin Fedorov don't have a paintball team to play on in 2015.
Yeah.
Who do you think they're going to go for?
But we're not talking about number 6 Art Chaos.
I
over
get
here.
but
we're talking about
Todd,
number 8 Houston
I understand,
Heat.
but who do you think Houston Heat's going to pick up?
Of course they're going to pick them up.
Okay, well, all right, but then
course
now
they're
we're
gonna
talking
pick
about
them up.
Houston Heat again.
Yeah.
And then are they going to be the 8th ranked Houston Heat next year with those?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Amazing teams, amazing players on their
Mishka,
squad.
Mishka hit me up, me and Oliver up in Paris, and was like, hey, you know, like, what's up for next year? And we're like, listen, you can come play with us. We'll give you a gun and event, and you get like a bunch of jerseys. What's up? Like just like you guys were waiting for me to give the rest of the offer, he kind of sat there also like, and next,
And then?
and we're like, but you're gonna have fun, and we're
probably
gonna
gonna
do
stomp
well,
people.
yeah, like
We're gonna win every event.
yeah, we're gonna do great, and we're gonna have fun, It's like, are those guys having fun? I don't think so.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. Well,
There's such thing as too much paintball.
In 2015, if we see Alexander Biernikov, Sergei Solnashkov, Konstantin Fedorov, and Mishka go back to Houston Heat, along with Greg Sewers, Tim Montressor,
Right.
Ryan Moorhead, and then you have
want to
Monville
circle
and
something
Chad
for you.
George. Yes, that's going to be
Hold
an
on.
amazing
Todd,
team.
I'm just going to circle
Okay.
something for you. All right, if you look at the top 5 for Houston Heat, so the top 5 for Houston Heat, for everybody out there, you have Sam Monville, 10th overall. Greg Sewers, 21st overall. Those are their number 1 and number 2 guys. Now, the third-ranked guy is Woodley, all the way down at 60th. Then you have Chad Boucher and Chad George. Now, if you want to just flip over before we even get there to the 6th-ranked team, Art Chaos, and can you just read me off who their top 4 guys are?
Number 3.
And their rankings, please.
Number 3 would be Alexander Biernikov.
3rd overall.
Number 4 would be Mishka
Number
Knyazev.
3, 4.
Number 5.
Number 5th overall.
In the
Weird.
league, Konstantin Fedorov. And 9th in the league, Sergei Solnashkov.
Mind you, two of their matches were played in the Challengers
Yeah,
division.
and that's
so they,
2.
And
But
they
we're
still
talking
got
about 2014,
most
right?
of the
Okay,
points.
We're
so-
still talking about 2014.
Yeah, no, it's actually the off season of 2014, so we have to kind of like prelude to the 2015 season. But yes, okay. All right, let's talk about 2014 though.
Okay.
All right, so Todd, talk to me about 2014 with Houston Heat. Who do you think let them down?
I think that they all let each other down on the whole, and that's just the point I was getting at. I totally understand what you guys are getting at with, who they're going to get next year and the reason why they made the decisions that they did in the offseason. But I mean, as far as 2014 goes, the reason why we're giving teams like the Ironmen and Vicious the credit the credit that we did for stepping up and finishing how they finished, we got to say the same thing on the opposite end about Houston Heat for the amount of money that they spent, the expectations that they had, because when you're Houston Heat, you expect to be number 1, and that's the long and the short of it, okay? And when you finish number 8, you're the biggest flop in the league this year, okay? That's all I got to say about that, all right?
I don't think you could argue that.
This team is built to be championship caliber team every single year, whether they have the Russians or not. Okay, they went out and they got Sewers, they went out and they got Montressor, they went out and they got Moorhead because they wanted to win a title again this year, and they wanted to prove that they could win a title without the Russians, and they finished 8th place overall behind San Antonio X Factor, Art Chaos, LA Ironmen, Omaha Vicious, San Diego Dynasty, Tampa Bay Damage,
and Edmonton Impact. Yeah. No, and I don't think you could argue with one thing that came out of your mouth right now, and I'm just interested to see what Houston Heat is going to do next year, and the only one that was interesting to me in that off-season cuts was Woodley, because I felt like Woodley had definitely proved himself as a top-level pro. 60th overall is definitely not anything to write home about, but he's been there since the beginning. He's had some clutch performances. He's still a really young guy. I really think there's a lot of upside to Woodley. It must have been something behind the scenes that we don't know about for Woodley, but still, I think Woodley's got a bright future in front of him. I'm wondering. I think that to me is one of, as far as the offseason is concerned, where is John Woodley going to land?
Yeah. Well, you make a good point. The fact that you're talking about the top 5 players on Houston Heat, that being Monville, Sewers, Woodley, Boucher, and George. Only one of those guys got cut. So everybody else on the outside is looking at it like, why would they cut those 4 guys? And then if you look at it from a stats perspective, only one of those guys is the top 5 guy on their team.
Yeah.
So maybe they know something we don't know.
And that's what I'm saying. Well, again, we got a long off season, so we'll keep bringing you guys updates. We got a lot more conversation with Houston Heat as we progress towards the 2015 PSB season, which does not begin until March. So we got a lot of time to conversate about this. So let's move on. Let's move on to the 7th-ranked team, San Antonio X Factor. And again, when I see 7th and San Antonio X Factor next to it, especially coming off a World Championship performance that they had in the 2013 World Cup, this was not the season that San Antonio X Factor wanted to have.
It's really tough to talk about X Factor because there's so many different variables, in the season. Like, we've gone over this before. San Antonio X Factor, you look at Dallas, Okay, they went 4-0 in the prelims. It's really hard to go 4-0, especially in this year, as we've talked about, a lot of one-point games amongst a lot of really good teams. End up losing. Vicious beat them, in the semifinals. In a really close game. We gave it to them. They came back. We ended up winning.
Yeah. You guys went up a bunch of points too, and then they ended up storming back, but you held off their attack at the end.
MAO, once again, is between us and X Factor. Who's going to go? Okay, whoever wins that last prelim game, the winner, if they win, they go to Sunday. If we lose, we end up playing relegation, right? That's the way that went. They ended up winning. They ended up playing. And then Chicago, we ended up playing them again for relegation, So very familiar with X Factor this season, right? X Factor going into Chicago, bunch of missed flights, bad weather, got off to a slow start on Friday, coming on Saturday, had a much better day. But because of that slow start on Friday, ended up playing for relegation. We beat them in relegation. They ended up playing in the Challengers Division at Riverside. Go to Riverside, smash everybody, go play Chicago Aftershock to go to the finals, smash them, end up playing Revo in the finals and beating them, and coming back to the Champions Division for World Cup. Go to World Cup, go 3-1, and because they were in such a tight, tough bracket at World Cup, they end up not making Sunday, going 3-1 in the prelims, which is pretty much unheard of.
Heartbreaker.
So, I mean, you can look at X Factor as the 7th ranked team this year, and I mean,
but that's how tight it is.
That's exactly
how tight it is. What you were talking about. It's just, it's the same thing with your team. And I talked to them right after they lost that last game. I talked to a bunch of those guys at the very end of the day, and Ryan Brand actually said it best. The coach of San Antonio X Factor. He said, it's a heartbreaker to go 3-1 and not be able to make the semifinals at World Cup. But last year we went 2-2, squeaked into the semifinals, and ended up winning the event. So maybe this is just the paintball gods giving it to us a little bit here, which, as we well know, the paintball gods are very fickle. So, but I'm not knocking X Factor at all. I really thought that because they've had the same team together for so long, they picked Michael back up from the Russians last year. So that means another good guy they have on the Snakes, and they got Billy Bernaccia, Dimitri Ninos, and Michael Kovar as the three-pronged attack on the Snake side. They got Archie Montemayor, who's the #1 ranked guy in the world for 2014. He won the Top Gun title, and not only did he win it, he won it by a landslide. It wasn't even close. And they have Colt Roberts, who's the 20th ranked guy in the world, but that's a deceiving stat as well, too, because, Colt's up in the mix all the times, and he ends up getting shot out a lot early. Another one of those ones that kind of lives and dies on the sword, and so that kind of hurts his stats a little bit because he does die early sometimes. And then Scotty Kemp, if you look at their 1 through 5 guys, Archie Montemayor, #1, Colt Roberts, 20th, Dimitri Ninos, 26th, Scotty Kemp, 30th overall, and Dixon Yang, who didn't get a ton of spins, 43rd overall. That's pretty solid as far as the #1 through 5 guys on the ranking board. And they also, add in some of those other guys that played for them. I mean, that's a very strong team. Obviously, they're the 2013 world champs. I just kind of thought that, and I think they thought as well too. I don't think they disagree with anything that we're saying. I think that they just thought that they'd have a little bit. They thought the year would shake a little bit more towards their side of things. But it came down to slow starts. Came down to inopportune penalties, and it came down to, and those two things ended up hurting them when they were trying to make those comebacks to win those close 1-point games.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you right now, if you look at the stats, San Antonio X Factor had their top 4 guys were in the top 30 players. Okay, the only other teams that had that were Art Chaos, who won 2 events and had the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of hard to argue with that. Other than them was Edmonton Impact. Edmonton Impact was the only other team that had 4 guys in the top 30, and number 31 was Joshua Met. So basically, Edmonton Impact had all their top 5 guys in the top 31 and above.
Yeah, and also look at 6 and 7.
Yeah, 6 and 7. You got Laval and Cornell.
Yeah.
But I mean, X Factor. If you have your top 4 guys are in the top 30 players in the league, then you traditionally expect to be higher than a 7th place ranked team.
Right. Yeah. And just like you said, Todd, they matched up against you guys, and you guys took 4th overall.
Yeah.
And so to lose every single basically event essentially by 1 point to you guys makes it so that they had a great season.
Yeah.
They really did. Yeah. And there was the one hiccup that after that event where they had some mix-ups with the slow start, the flights and all the other issues that they ran into because of those storms. But they ended up coming in losing to a good team this year.
Well,
by a couple points.
Absolutely, I totally agree to what you were saying with Vicious. But I think that to kind of set up 2015 for them, if they could just stay the line, keep all their guys, and keep focused, and that it's been the same group of guys with X Factor now for going on almost a decade, and I think that if they can just keep it going and to stay focused, that same crew could very easily, who knows, man? I mean, maybe they can win 2 events. You do not know with the way that things are going to shake down on fate, but their team is awesome. From top to bottom, they're pretty solid. And yeah, they did take 7th overall, but again, I just think that speaks to the parity of the league and how good all the teams are. But we could see a whole new paintball world next year. Vicious is gone. We don't know if Excessive is going to be around. Our Chaos is out. You're going to probably see AC Dallas potentially, maybe also this other team, the divisional team coming up. Let's see, I can't remember. So it's
Revo's going to be a player.
Yeah, well, Revo, of course. Revo is already still in the Champions Division. But you have AC Dallas, you have DC Devastation. They're on the fence. They don't know if they're going to move up. You have the Collision team as well too, down in D1. Why am I skipping on somebody? The Outlaws, the Trayvon got Jamie Somm,
TMG Outlaws.
Yeah. So and the Outlaws had a phenomenal season as well too. And when I hit Jeremy Somm up and asked him if they were down to move up, he said, hey, we're open to it, but nothing for certain. I think AC, according to what Greg Pauly says, I think that we're going to see AC Dallas up in the Challengers division. They're a really hungry team. They've had another amazing success story coming up the divisional ranks. The Outlaws are another legit team. They have some pros, former pros that are playing with them as well, and a lot of hungry guys on that team. So, we could see a whole different paintball kind of world start to kind of transpire in 2015, and a lot of openings, a lot of opportunities. So we'll see. But let's move on from San Antonio X Factor. We definitely know that they can win tournaments. We definitely know it's a strong team. Obviously, it's San Antonio X Factor. They went 3-1 and didn't make the semifinals and at the World Cup, and they were really hoping that they were going to repeat and win 2 in a row. So they're going to be strong. If they can just keep it together, they are obviously going to be a favorite for next season. So before we sign off, let's talk about our Chaos. I know that the news is broke that they are no longer going to be a paintball team, but as far as 2014 was concerned, what a topsy-turvy year for them. If you really look at it, they won 4 events in 2014. They won 2 Challengers Division events, and then they won the last 2 Champions Division events.
They definitely had a great end of the season. Okay. But and topping it off with the last 2 wins, everybody in the paintball world is gonna be like, oh my God, what a great team! Why couldn't they keep it together? Their team was obviously all we remember is the last 2 events. They won back-to-back events. Now, if Todd ranks the Heat guys as the biggest flop of the year, I think that our Chaos would chalk up to the biggest disappointment.
Even with their 2 wins at the end of the year?
Even with their 2 wins.
Disappointing in a good way.
Yeah,
I think is what he's getting at.
So they ended strong.
They
did.
Six
They did. They came out of the
6
season.
isn't a tell of what the type of team they really are.
Exactly.
Is what you're getting
Yeah.
at.
They should have been a top 3, top 4 team. And the fact that they had 2 Challengers division, or they were relegated twice. That kind of, well, they started in the relegation, but then they lost.
They got relegated at MA.
And maybe they thought they were going to do better in that second event than they did, going 0-4 or 0-5. I'm sorry.
0-5.
And obviously that happened to us this year. And we couldn't even win the Challengers division from that game. But to take away a team with that much hype going into the season, that big of a budget, and then to show that their owner didn't even have enough confidence in them, or wasn't even happy enough with them to continue the year.
Yeah,
that
or
team
continue the program.
To continue the program. So cut the program after 1 season, which at the end they did incredibly well. But I think that they knew before going into World Cup that this team wasn't gonna be around next year. And then as far as an inner struggle from the team, like watching from an outsider's perspective and kind of having a little bit of inside knowledge.
Yeah, because you were over in Europe.
Yeah, I'm over in Europe. I'm watching these guys. Some of their players weren't happy because they weren't even getting spins. Clint Moore was
Axel
cut.
barely ever got spins.
Axel is a great player.
Yeah.
He barely even got to play, and I know he wasn't happy. Those guys weren't a team. Okay, those guys were, again, kind of like how Houston Heat was. It's just some guys that were on the team playing, especially now. You can build a team like that, but Todd, you've been around sports from even before paintball. If you don't have a team that gels, again, they're not really. They're all they're playing for is for that paycheck and a little bit of honor, you know. And unfortunately, that's not going to win games because. And I'll tell you what, the reason that Impact did so well is those guys aren't just playing for a paycheck. Those guys are playing for each other and they're having fun doing it. And that's also, you know, a little bit of tribute to our success over the last decade and a half is because we're playing for our friends, man. And these guys were not. Yeah, we're playing for each other and we're friends. And these guys aren't. That's kind of the bottom line. I'm sure they're stoked when they win and they want each other to see each other play well. But
to your point, if you go back and watch the live breakdown that we did the first time when Rainey Stanzak was sitting right here next to us, go back after Dallas, and you know we were all sitting here. You were here. We're all sitting here, and Rainey Stanzak said that I think it was on Saturday night of Dallas. All of Impact came together, and they were like, "Hey, man, you know, like, what are we really doing here? You know, like, why are we doing this? You know, why did we all come together?"
And they took 6 at Dallas.
You know, and they ended up playing for relegation,
No.
right? They didn't play for relegation because they won their last prelim game.
Yeah, they didn't.
So
play
they didn't have to
in
play for relegation.
Or play on
So on
Sunday.
Saturday night, they had a meeting, and they were basically like, "Hey, you know, you go back and I don't want to misquote Rainey, but he was basically, you know, the essence of what he was saying was that like we all came together and we're like, hey, why are we here, man? You know, like we need to understand that we're here because we're here to support each other. We're here to have fun. We're here to go out and be the best individuals that we can to make this team great. And that's what they did from that day forward.
Yep.
They went to the Millenniums. They went to the rest of the PSP events, and they just dominated. And that's the reason why they're sitting here #1 in this league.
And we're talking about all these other guys. Yeah,
won the Millennium, won the PSP, and cherry-picked teams from the cherry-picked players from the number two team so that they can be better next year. Not a week after the PSP World Cup's over, they went out and solidified their roster for next year because they want to continue their dominance. They want to continue being a solid team. And, you know, like, just to Ryan's point, you know, like you got a team like Art Chaos that went out there and, you know, put this team together. You know, why are we here? You know, why are we here? Why are we playing together? You know, why do we put this team together? Why do we go out and shoot paintballs at each other? You know, you look at a team like Edmonton Impact and, you know, the success that they had this year was because of the meeting that they had right after Dallas when they made that decision that they wanted to go out and do this for each other and go out and win paintball
Well, I think that just, you know, I know we're kind of running along on time here, but just real quick, I agree. I think it's not asking that question why, it's answering that question why. Because, you know, like one of the reasons you guys have had your longevity, why you guys really haven't lost too many of your core guys. I mean, yeah, Oliver did go away for a paycheck for a little bit, but he came back. And, you know, you've stuck through even though you've had offers. And I think it's because ultimately, yes, the question is asked why. But if you can't answer that question definitively, well, then you're maybe doomed to mediocrity. And that's the most important thing going forward. I think that a lot of people have to ask themselves in the offseason from top to bottom. You know, so now through 2 breakdowns, we've talked about the top 10 teams in the world and how are they going to respond in this offseason. And I think that that's what's going to make 2015 a really fascinating season. Not only that, but all these potential people coming up. You know, AC Dallas probably has a really good answer for that why. You know, the Outlaws probably have a pretty good answer for that why. That's why they've been able to dominate in the divisional leagues and why they are hungry to come up and start chopping heads in the pro division. And having those younger guys nip at your heels, you have to always re-ask yourself that and answer, not just ask, but answer that question and answer it definitively. So I think that was a really good point that you just made, and I think that ultimately that's why Art Chaos folded. Again, none of us really know exactly, and this is the truth, no one really knows exactly what happened behind the scenes over there to make Art Chaos win the last 2 events and then fold, but that's the status. That's what's happening right now, right here, right this second, as far as we know. So. That's it, man. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to the breakdown, and we will keep you guys updated as we move forward here, heading towards the 2015 PSP season. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Ryan, thank you very much for tuning in. Before we sign off, where can people get in touch with you? I know you're all around the world. You got you know, tons of awesome stuff going on social media. Quite the entertaining life that you live.
Thanks.
So, you know, give some people some insight on where they can get in touch with your clinics or just follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, if you want to set up in a clinic for your team or local field or anything like that, you can find me on Facebook. My fan page, just Ryan Greenspan. You can message me on Twitter at Ryan Greenspan. My email address is pretty easy also. This is going to sound redundant, but it's ryangreenspan18@gmail.com. And then if you want to just follow up with my travels and stuff as you do, and
Love it.
and just see some things.
I
some
can't wait
fun
to hear
stuff.
about Egypt as soon as we get out
Yeah,
of here.
yeah,
right?
you know, there's trips like that, and then I put up fun videos and stuff. And that's just my Instagram is at Ryan Greenspan. So I try to keep everybody, and actually we're working closely with my sponsors right now, HK and Eclipse, on doing a little bit more on my video series, traveling around and doing paintball in you know, new remote places, or trying to get paintball seen a little bit more by the public. So look for that in 2015. That's gonna be something great.
Todd, do you know what you're doing next year for 2015 yet? You got any news to break for us?
I'm just trying to keep this seat warm right here so I can sit next to Matty all season long. That's where you're going to find me for sure.
Well,
Other than that,
hey, the more I
we
can
don't
get you,
know.
the better. I love it. I just, you know, you're one of the best coaches in the game, so I didn't know if you found a new home after Vicious had closed the doors.
No, this might be the end of it for me. But, you know, I'll definitely be here, you know, watching games, trying to break them down for everybody. You know, trying to keep the game exciting. So,
Yeah.
you know, I appreciate everybody that's tuned in to Paintball Access this year and has followed me and supported me, you know, with my brand and my gear and everything
Raza,
that
for
I've
sure.
done. But, you know, I'm just happy to be here, you know, involved with the sport, with Paintball Access. You know, I'm glad to have this opportunity, and, you know, expect to see more from us next year. We'll be right here, you know, trying to bring the professional sport of paintball worldwide to everybody.
Yeah, and again, thank you for all of your support, because we only do this for you, and this is really about you know, us trying to take paintball to another level, but we need your support to do it. So help us to preach the paintball gospel and to try to take our sport to another level. And man, I can't wait till the 2015 season. A special shout out to our sponsors, GI Sports, Planet, Dye, and also Key Action Sports. So, and it's been a crazy season. We will continue to keep you guys updated as the 2015 season starts to progress towards us. So we'll see you guys in the next episode.
There are massive opportunities, both for the sport of paintball and for your business. If we are successful in taking our sport to another level, unite with Paintball Access in our quest to elevate paintball and broadcast it to the world. There are advertising packages available for any size business. Join us. Advertise with PBA and help us change the sport for the better forever.